Tomiwa had always been passionate about baking. She spent hours watching YouTube tutorials, reading recipe books, and experimenting with different flavors and ingredients. Her friends and family raved about her creations, and she had even started taking orders for birthday cakes and other special occasions. But today, disaster struck. Tomiwa had decided to try out a new recipe for a chocolate cake. She had carefully measured out the ingredients, mixed the batter, and poured it into a greased and floured pan. She slid the pan into the oven, set the timer, and waited anxiously for the cake to emerge. 25 minutes later, the timer went off, and Tomiwa opened the oven door to check on the cake. But instead of a beautifully risen, golden brown masterpiece, she was greeted by a sad, flat, and burnt offering. Tomiwa's heart sank. She had been so sure that this cake was going to be perfect. She had followed the recipe to the letter, and she had even used high-quality ingredients. What could have gone wrong? She took the cake out of the oven and let it cool on the counter. As she waited, she couldn't help but think about all the things that could have contributed to the cake's failure. Had she overmixed the batter? Had she not used enough leavening agents? Had the oven temperature been off? When the cake had cooled enough, Tomiwa sliced into it, hoping against hope that it would still be edible. But the inside of the cake was just as disappointing as the outside. It was dry and crumbly, with a strange, unpleasant texture. Tomiwa sighed and tossed the cake into the trash. She would have to start over from scratch, and she would have to figure out what had gone wrong with the recipe. As she began to clean up the kitchen, Tomiwa couldn't help but feel a little discouraged. She had been so sure that she was getting the hang of this baking thing, and now it seemed like she was back to square one. But as she scrubbed the last of the cake pans and put the mixing bowls away, Tomiwa realized that failure was just a part of the learning process. Every baker, no matter how experienced, had failed cakes and ruined recipes. It was how you responded to those failures that mattered. Tomiwa took a deep breath and let her shoulders relax. She would try again tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. She would keep experimenting and learning until she got it just right. And with that thought, Tomiwa felt a sense of determination and purpose. She would not let one failed cake defeat her. She would rise to the challenge, and she would come out even stronger and more skilled on the other side. The next morning, Tomiwa woke up feeling refreshed and renewed. She headed into the kitchen, ready to face whatever baking challenges lay ahead. She preheated the oven, pulled out a new recipe, and began to mix and measure the ingredients. As she worked, Tomiwa felt a sense of calm and focus. She was determined to get it right this time, and she was willing to do whatever it took to make that happen. The cake went into the oven, and Tomiwa waited anxiously for it to emerge. 25 minutes later, she opened the oven door and peeked inside. This time, the cake was perfect. It was golden brown and beautifully risen, with a moist and tender texture. Tomiwa let out a whoop of excitement and carefully removed the cake from the oven. As she let it cool, Tomiwa couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. She had faced her fears and overcome them, and she had come out with a beautiful, delicious cake. Tomiwa sliced into the cake and took a bite. It was everything she had hoped for and more. The flavors were rich and complex, the texture was perfect, and the presentation was beautiful. Tomiwa smiled, feeling happy and fulfilled. She had learned a valuable lesson about perseverance and determination.